Hello, and welcome to an intro to Anthro with two humans. I'm human number one, John McCray.
And I'm human number two, John Lehr.
And this is the podcast where we reassess what it means to be human. And the title of today's episode is Heavy Petting, Humans' Love Affair with Cats and Dogs.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so John, I know you have dogs, right? Or
I
you
have one. Yeah, as you know, I lost my my big guy last year, Diesel, 130-pound Alaskan Malamute.
Oh,
It's like living with a bear.
Wow.
But I still have my perhaps the dumbest dog I've ever owned, but sweet as hell, Earl, who is what do you call it? A golden. He's golden and something else.
Okay. Well, I always say, who are we to judge when it comes to
Earl,
intelligence?
listen, I hear you.
I always like, whenever people talk about, like, that dog is, it's like, well, come on. Like, I'm sure there's somebody saying that same thing about us right now.
Well, I always say Earl's so dumb, he's dumber than I am. And that's saying something.
Have you, you were a cat person, right?
Yeah, I still am, but I live in coyote country right here off the park, and I have two kids who, even as teenagers, fail miserably at keeping doors closed. So cats don't live long out here.
Oh, no. I thought you meant like the coyotes would come into the living room.
Oh, no.
Like
I would not be surprised. We had a raccoon in our kitchen once, but that's
God.
Yeah, and they're disgusting creatures. My God, they smell. And this one was big, and he just walked in the kitchen. Long enough to open the closet and get into the dog food.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and then he waddled out of there right through the doggy door.
You could wake up with that thing in bed with you.
Oh, God.
You just roll over and you think it's Earl or something. It's just
my favorite dog. I think you know this story, but my favorite dog, Billy, years ago, got skunked in the backyard and came in at like 3 a.m. and jumped in bed with us. And Jennifer, my wife, just screamed bloody murder, got up in her underwear, got in her car, and drove away.
That's about all you can do. Who did you had Shecky. You had Shecky in Chicago. That was your cat.
That was when you had a pack of cats. You had all those white cats.
Oh,
most of them were deaf.
Yeah. I had
how many
6
did you
cats.
Have?
6 cats.
Jesus, in a little one-bedroom apartment. And then when you'd go out of town, I'd have to go feed them.
Yeah.
And that was scary going into that. It was like you were outnumbered. And they were all just staring at me, looking at me like I'm a chicken leg or something.
Yeah.
God knows.
I think that may have been the lowest point of my life. Like when I was getting sober, I quit drugs, I had quit smoking, I'd gotten out of a tumultuous relationship. And it was just me in there losing my mind with 6 cats staring at me.
We were both. That was tough times for both of us. I would come up. We were so broke. I'd come over there, and you'd make some pasta concoction out of chickpeas, and
just trying to stay alive.
Just surviving.
But Mary. When I met Mary, Mary's family they've always been dog people.
Yeah.
So when we were in LA, we got Franz, who is like
doggy.
He's like
Franz is great.
A dachshund schnauzer cocker mix. We got him from a shelter. And then when we got out here we were living up near Santa Fe, we got Bianca, who's just a complete mutt. And she's a wonderful dog too.
Yeah, they're both great dogs. Franz is getting a little long in the tooth. And I'm concerned about you when Franz finally goes, because I know he's your baby.
It's going to be awful. He's my buddy. He's been everywhere with me out here.
I know. I may have to come out there when he goes down.
Yeah. He has dementia right now. So he doesn't know if he's indoors or outdoors. So he could go out and be outside for 30 minutes. And then when you let him in, suddenly he thinks he's outside and just goes to the bathroom right there. Yeah. So he's in a diaper. I'm trying to pay it forward. I know that at some point I'm going to be in the same situation.
Yeah.
Like, who are you people?
Right.
I don't.
Yeah, but it won't be Franz. It'll be some county nurse I assign you to.
Just put a sock in my mouth and put me out in the wheelchair out in the backyard.
You won't know.
Go back.
You won't know the difference.
I won't know. For all I know, I'm on the French Riviera. It's like
just like Franz. You don't know where you
are. But yeah, it's really a large part of our day now is just picking up poop, cleaning up barf.
Yeah, that's how it always ends. It always ends. Diesel couldn't get up on his back leg. He had the hips go out, and sad. It's sad how it's not pleasant. Go out.
Yeah. And I will say that I'm really dreading when both of them finally go. I think it's such a sad thing. You become so attached to them.
Well, here's my plan for you.
Yeah.
I think as soon as Franz goes down, we get another one in there. We keep you guys on. Yes, I absolutely do. The two of you and Mary, yes. You guys got to keep the conveyor belt going. I'm telling you, it's the only way. And everybody says, no, it'll be nice not have to take care of him. No, it's not nice. What's nice is having a dog around.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
I'll
bring Earl. I'll give you Earl. You can have Earl.
No. I've heard about him. I've heard about his. He's
the thing about Earl, though, is he's stupid, but he's a love bug. All he wants to do is love. Yep.
Oh, that's wonderful. Mm-hmm. What more can you ask for? But that's kind of what got me thinking about this show. The topic of this show is like, why do we have pets? Why do humans keep pets? What do we get from it? I mean, of course, there's, I guess, companionship or something you get from them for a while. But at the end,
it's heartbreak.
Yeah. Why are we adding more heartbreak?
I'm assuming that initially it was because we needed them for help. They provided services. The cats kept the mice away. The dogs protected us from other predators. But something's changed over the thousands of years, and now we're taking care of them.
Right. I don't know. Maybe I don't know who's smarter with that. But I thought we could take a look today about pets particularly, because, I mean, we have relationships with other animals, but really we're talking about these pet relationships.
Yeah, we sure are.
And, there's some debate about, whether other animals, like you'll see online some videos of like chimps or gorillas who have bonded with puppies or kittens, for example.
Yeah, until they get hungry and just rip their heads off or something.
Yeah,
because it never ends well for those pets.
Yeah, that's what some of the the people who are like, well, I don't know, maybe they're just bonding for a time being. It doesn't really seem like they're taking care of the pet. You know what I mean?
They're more like mini refrigerators. They're just keeping the flesh for later for a snack.
But I think it's safe to say that humans definitely keep pets, or what we consider to be pets. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is, well, what do we mean by a pet? And in her book, Pets in America, the writer Catherine Greer says that the word pet itself probably comes from the root word that gives us in French petit, the same root word of P-E-T-I-T. And the word pet was first used in the 1500s to mean an indulged or spoiled child.
Ah, yes. Yes. I just worked with a couple where they have a little tiny dog, and it's unbelievable. They treat that thing like their baby. Yeah. They're just that dog. And the dog is elderly. And it's like most of its teeth are gone. It's little tiny. It's like a 3-pound dog, but it's got its tongue just constantly hanging out. Like it can't control its tongue. It's pretty cute.
So they brought it to work. I mean,
they bring it everywhere, and they talk about it. They talk to it. Really? One of them always has it on them.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Was he? Did you? Were you attracted to him? Bonded to him? Or did you?
Yeah. I've never met a dog I don't like.
I'm not sure if you watch British mysteries, like on BritBox or anything.
Yes,
but
yes.
There's that show Vera, which is a British mystery, and she's a detective up in Northumberland. But she uses that term pet all the time. Like, there are still places, I guess, in England where people still use pet to mean, like, referring to people, you know? So she'll say, when she's interrogating someone, she'll be like, well, you knew what you were doing, didn't you, pet? Or something, you know?
Oh, I like that. I might take that on. That'll be like my thing.
And so Greer says that in the 1600s, the word pet was used for animals that had been tamed for companionship or pleasure. Mm-hmm. And it was especially used for orphaned lambs. So people were raising, like shepherds were raising lambs, and the mother sheep had died.
Yeah.
And you would have to hand feed and hand raise the orphaned lamb. And people started to refer to them as pets.
But ultimately, you'd slaughter the lamb, right?
Yeah.
You're not keeping that lamb around forever like a little pig.
No, I don't think so. I don't think they
have pig pets.
Yeah. And in 1828, the Webster's Dictionary actually defined pet as a lamb brought up by hand, or any little animal fondled and indulged.
Fondled? So, why do they have to say fondled?
Well,
I don't know.
In the 1600s, pet also became a verb, which related to like actually stroking or fondling an animal.
That's so amazing. I figured that came first, the petting, but no, interesting.
Yeah. And it wasn't until the early 1900s that to pet became a slang term for sexual foreplay.
Now you got my attention.
Well, I'm like early 1900s. That seems late to me. Like
maybe
I thought people were a little more, I don't know, promiscuous or something. But it seems like
it was all just like, you know, you just follow what you follow your programming.
Greer also notes that in the 18th century, people usually referred to pet animals as favorites. Like, that's my favorite.
Okay, I like that.
And she says that this really refers to the fundamental characteristic of keeping pets, and that is the act of choosing a particular animal and differentiating it from all other animals.
Yes, you anthropomorphize it. It's yours. Right. You know everything about it. It becomes very special.
Yeah, like you're singling it out. So
this one's mine.
Yeah, and then she says that the words pet and favorite are, quote, based on human perception, meaning that no people, no pets. So really, it's us that are distinguishing what that animal is special. Like, people are the ones that are making the choice.
Yes. Of it. Right. And okay, makes sense.
And she says also that you know, draws attention to proximity and the importance of touch, which we've already kind of you know, talked about. Like, it's the ongoing care of the animal. So,
which my children do not take. Nobody feeds my dog. Nobody walks him but me. And then they're like, really? Why does he always hang out with you? And I'm like, what the hell, you idiots? Because I do everything.
Yeah. I think that's a good lesson for people when they get a pet.
Yeah.
You know, they always get mad, like, if the pet goes with somebody. It's like, well, that's, you know.
They're the ones doing the work. Yeah. Put some time in.
I think you could use that in other aspects of your life.
Yeah, exactly. My kids could start. Maybe I should be more like Earl, and just not give my kids any attention unless they feed or water me.
Be like, why don't they ever call me back? It's like, well, you know, maybe you need to put in a little bit. Of,
yeah,
in a little bit of work. In his book, Man in the Natural World, Keith Thomas writes that there were 3 particular features that distinguish pets from other animals beginning in the 15 and 1600s. And the first one was that the pet was allowed in the house.
Yes. Yes. That's the threshold, isn't it? That's when it becomes a pet, when you let it inside. Because we had an episode on rats, and our relationship with rats is if they come inside, they die. Basically.
Right.
You know, that's the arrangement. If we see you or if you interfere with us at all, then we must kill you.
You can stay outside. You can stay outside.
You do whatever you want as long as I don't see it. But you come in my home and forget about it. But with pets, it's the opposite.
Yeah, we've chosen them and said, okay, come on in. You can come on. You're okay. Yeah.
But there's those pets that kind of walk the line, like a pet rat. You know, people who have pet rats, they swear by them. They're like, they're the best pets ever. Or what are those things that were like minks that people would have?
Yeah.
Ferrets.
Not a chinchilla, a ferret.
A ferret. Oh my God. That's no. I love animals, but I don't want a ferret running around my kitchen cabinets.
Yeah, but I think
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I think it's the choice. I mean, like if you make the choice that the rat, like you don't want a wild rat in your house, but you want to say like, okay, I'm choosing this as my pet.
That rat.
Therefore,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. We had a bearded dragon. Remember that pet? And my daughter, when she was like 5, started saying, I want a bearded dragon. I want a bearded dragon. And the pet store had one and I bought it. Not realizing they're a lizard. They're super. Okay. I fell in love with it. I fell in love because of course she never took care of it. Nobody took care of it but me. And that thing would never move at all. It was unless you put crickets in there, and then that thing would and eat it all up. But it was so prehistoric looking and so cool looking. It's like a lizard with like, oh my God, I love that thing. And then he died, and I went in to get him to bury him, and he moved again. He flipped back over. He wasn't dead. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then later, he finally did die.
How often did that happen? It's like every morning, like, oh God.
Well, he was on his back. I'd never seen him on his back like that, and he wasn't moving at all. And I poked him, and then I got him out, and then all of a sudden he flipped over and was like, no, not yet. I was like, all right, sorry.
They've evolved. That happens all the time to all bearded dragons. People think they're dead and want to flush them. I remember my grandfather, they had an indoor dog. My grandparents had it down in Parsons, Kansas. Had an indoor dog on the farm and an outdoor dog on the farm.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And so
I feel bad.
Cricket, my grandma's dog, which was a Australian Silkie, was always the indoor dog. It was just like pampered.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm Cricket.
And then
Cricket
Elmer,
hungry. Cricket hung. Mommy. Meanwhile, who did you have outside? Who'd they have?
Elmer. Just like
Elmer, of course. What the fuck? Why am I out here? Cricket's in there.
Yeah.
He's got like flies in his eyes and ticks and like, oh.
He was always out there, like he would go get water moccasins and like, bite them and kill them and stuff. He was always sick. And then as soon as my grandma would go out of town to go like visit like her kids, Elmer was in the house.
Oh.
Yeah.
Grandpa let Elmer in?
Yeah.
Come on in, Elmer. What? Seriously?
Yeah.
What's this? It's a rug. Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah. Get up there on the couch.
What? Seriously? I can do
that. The second feature that Thomas says about pets was that pets were given an individual personal name.
Yes.
So, and that
if you don't name them, they're not a pet.
Right. And the thing is, people historically had always given like their horses or their dogs names, but they were always just like little short names that you could yell at the dog, like boy or something. You know what I mean?
Brownie.
Right. Yeah. But the thing is, once you began to dote more on your pet, then the
Yes.
chances are you would give them a human name.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Thomas is talking
My first
about.
dog was named Rain Cloud.
Yeah.
She was black, and we named her Rain Cloud. Then we got a cat who was a calico. We named her Sunshine.
I always thought that was nice.
Yeah, my mom. That was my mom's doing.
Really?
Yeah, but our very first cat, who was already old by the time I became sentient, was Picalit, which, according to my mom, was Norwegian for little cat. But I've later tested that theory, and they're like, no, it doesn't mean anything.
Did you throw that out in Norway? Did you like,
yeah, I was like, hey, I had a cat named Picalit, and they looked at me like, what does that mean?
Really? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it was like some old Norwegian or something.
Or the Kansas pronunciation. Picalit.
Apparently, there was a time when Christian moralists thought that people shouldn't give Christian names to animals.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, coming from their point of view, I get that.
Yeah. Because they like to have that delineation between, like, there was a hierarchy in creation, and humans were up top. And if you named
Catholics,
your dog,
they loved that hierarchy, didn't they? The Christians love the hierarchy.
And if you name your dog like Reggie, something, it would like blur the lines in that, And then finally, a pet was never eaten. Which
not unless it came down to it. I've always said to my kids, look, if there's a zombie apocalypse, Earl is going to be, put in the slow cooker.
It's I think that's probably the same with everybody. It's not just a pet. I think it's even humans probably. Like, well, when it comes down to it, we're not going to eat you, but
Who would you eat first, me or Franz? And be honest.
I don't know. If I'm going to actually morally have to live with that guilt forever, I think I'd rather get the more bang for the buck and go with you. If you're already guilty, yeah.
There's more meat on my bones. You might as well get a couple of dinners out of it.
It's just it's sunk cost analysis or whatever. I don't know. It's I've already made it, so
I'm just imagining me and Franz both duct taped to chairs, and you sitting there, kind of trying to figure out what to do
with a recipe book or something. So then we get to, where do dogs and cats fit into this transition from animals to pets? And historically, what they think is our relationship with dogs begins somewhere between 20,000 and 30,000 years ago.
Wow. That is a long ass time ago. I mean, not in the scheme of things, but Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, definitely by 15,000 years ago, we have steady, conclusive evidence of humans and dogs living together.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book,
weren't the Egyptians the ones first with the cats, or is that just kind of the way? Yeah, it was. It really was. Wow. I'm sure you're getting to it. Sorry.
We'll get to that.
Sorry. As per usual, I always jump ahead. I'm the student who's flipping the pages and seeing where we're going.
Oh, I know students like you. Right up front, always finishing my sentence.
That's right.
So we'll get there. Okay, hang on.
Okay.
We're on a voyage.
Gotcha.
In the book A Dog's History of the World, Laura Hobgood Oster talks about a cave in France called Chauvet Cave, and there are footprints of a child in that cave with a wolf or a dog walking next to them.
Whoa.
And that goes back to probably 26,000 years ago.
What's the deal with all these caves in France that have archaeological? What's up with France and caves?
I don't know.
And archaeological, because you brought up a couple of them, right? What's that famous one that we were talking about?
Lascaux is the one with all the paintings, and then there was the one that possibly a man wearing a condom. I don't know. We're still looking for that.
So much crazy shit going on in caves in France.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Pat Shipman in her book, Our Oldest Companion, says that the gray wolf, or Canis lupus, evolved in Eurasia about 800,000 years ago.
Eurasia? Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see a lot of, you see people out here in LA who've got half wolves and stuff.
Oh.
And whenever they say, and they're very proud, oh yeah, he's 3 parts wolf or whatever. And you look at him and you're like, that's not a pet.
Yeah.
He's nice to you, but that's,
yeah.
You can see it in him. They're not, you're going to,
he's just waiting. He's just waiting.
So. Don't sleep with him at night. All right.
Have you ever been to a wolf sanctuary? Have you ever done that?
I'd love to check it out, but I'm scared. I mean, wolves are, man.
Yeah.
Badass motherfuckers.
Mary's dad took us to one when they were living in Pennsylvania. We went to one, and you don't realize how huge wolves are. They are big. Enormous. Yeah. Enormous. Yeah.
They're big. And I love big dogs. I love myself a big dog. I know you're more of a lap dog guy. You're smaller dogs.
Yeah.
Your dogs have stuff. They're a little bit bigger than your lap.
Right.
They're not like poodles or something. You've got like hardy dogs, but they're medium sized, compact.
They're not like Diesel.
Diesel. Oh my God. He was amazing. It changes your life to live with a creature that size,
Did you, you adopted, he was already a few years, you didn't have him from a puppy. You adopted him, he was already huge.
We think he was about 3 or 4 years old when we got him. Oh, such a sweetheart.
Yeah.
He was like a rug. The kids would just sleep on him like a bed.
So Neanderthals, if we remember, evolved about 400,000 years ago, and then modern humans came along about 200,000 years ago. So there was actually, wolves have been around longer than that. So there has never been a time for humans when there weren't wolves there. So
wow. It's like sharks. They just evolved into this machine that just works well.
Yeah. Yeah. But and I don't know if maybe that probably from an evolutionary standpoint, we were probably always afraid of wolves because wolves were always there and were always like, more ferocious than we were, at least in the beginning.
Absolutely. Because it's not 1-on-1. It's 20-on-1. They're out there, and they work together. Jesus.
And Shipman says that, the dogs that we're associating with humor, what we call dogs at that time, were probably more kind of like a combination of a wolf dog. It wasn't really full dog yet, but yet it was missing certain traits that wolves had.
Yeah.
And she calls this dogginess, like what makes a dog a dog, what essential characteristics make a dog a dog.
Loyalty. That's number one.
That's one of them, because she says there's certain some of the essential characteristics of dogginess, she says, are to be part of and communicate with a group that includes humans. So there's something about more than like you were talking about it already, like with a wolf, it's kind of like looking at like the owner of like, hey man, anytime, I could just jump up and take your throat out or something.
You out. Yeah. And that's the knock on pit bulls, is that they have this aggression that's been bred into them, and they have they've had a hard time, pit bulls, but they still that at least that's the knock on them, that they still have this trait,
right?
Where they can just lock down on you and not let go. I know we're going to get a lot of stuff from pit bull owners. I love pit bulls. I'm just saying that's the knock on them.
Yeah. But we're talking about just the prehistoric dogs or wolf dogs at that time. We're talking about them.
What the hell do they look like, you think? They look like wolves? What were they bred with that made them a wolf dog? Like, what were they, like a hyena kind of thing? Or like, what did they crossbreed them? Or was it just a matter of breeding this puppy's nice, so we're going to breed him with this puppy that's nice?
Exactly. Because they were still wolves at that time. I mean,
they were picking the ones that were the nicest, the easiest to. Wow.
And what they've discovered through genetic research, and Shipman talks about it, is that in humans there's a condition called Williams-Beuren syndrome. And Williams-Beuren syndrome affects like 27 particular genes. And there are certain physical characteristics and mental characteristics and learning characteristics that are affected by Williams-Beuren syndrome. But one thing that they found is people that have Williams-Beuren syndrome in humans are very social, almost to the
That's
point
me.
like
I'm William Boyerson.
Yeah,
I've never heard that term.
They have a lack of shyness, and they'll go up and try to make friends and bond with everybody. That's just one of the characteristics.
That's not me. I like to think I'm that, but I'm not. Yeah. I'm over sitting in a corner with you going, look at that guy. He hates us.
Yeah. So, remarkably, what they found is that domestic dogs, when they did DNA analysis on them, researchers also found that 6 of those same genes that affect people with Williams-Beuren syndrome in humans also affect dogs.
Interesting.
So in other words, they think that there's a genetic reason why domestic dogs and like wolves at that time were genetically predisposed to being attached to humans.
Yeah.
Or like being more social.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And
now,
Richard
what blows me away is why would that trait, I mean, is it just by accident? Like, why was that trait built into the sequence anyway? Like, why was it even there? Was it just a matter of accident or interesting?
I think it's just like any other evolutionary trait. It was a mutation, or like certain dogs had more of that, more of that kind of social DNA. And probably those were the dogs that would come up closer to human camps.
And over time, those were bred and more and more and more. And now here we go with the dog show with all those crazy breeds we've got.
Yeah.
That no Mother Nature's making those dogs.
Right.
You see those dogs prancing around, you're like, Jesus, you have no purpose whatsoever. Human beings run wild.
Yeah. A lot of variation.
God.
But what they think is that, so you have some dogs that or some wolves that were genetically predisposed to getting up closer to humans. And then probably over time, humans started seeing that, hey, this is kind of a good thing. Like you talked about already, they can help us hunt.
Mm-hmm.
They can, they can like protect warn us if somebody is coming up at night.
Mm-hmm.
And so over time, and dogs kind of realize too, the wolves at that time realize, hey, they're feeding me, because we have archaeological evidence from like 36,000 years ago, I think it was, of mammoth bones with teeth marks on them.
Jesus.
From dogs. So we think that.
Imagine giving Franz a mammoth bone. Here you go, buddy. See you in a week and a half.
Yeah, it's
like a big thigh bone.
Yeah, there's some you can get those at the pet store, with the huge ones.
Those are weird. Some of those bones you can get in the pet store looks like somebody's femur.
Yeah.
I don't want Diesel getting used to chewing on a femur. I'd rather give him a little greenie.
So what Hopgood-Oster also says that, so why was it that humans and these kind of wolf dogs were able to get along so well? And she says, well, it's because, first of all, they were both apex predators that hunted the same types of game in a similar manner.
Mm-hmm.
They both hunted in groups, and they both lived in highly social groups.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of, we were similar to wolves already. And so
match
humans
made in heaven.
Yeah. We both kind of, it just worked. It just worked. We were soulmates.
Amazing.
And the other thing that's interesting is the domestication of dogs is something that didn't just start in one place and then spread out. There's evidence that it was happening all over the world in different places.
That the more we get into anthropology, the more I'm seeing you're teaching me that the more that happens a lot. Like it's not in one place and then it spreads out. It always happens simultaneously. What's up with that?
I think we all have the same. We all have tools. The same DNA. We all have the same brain matter, and we're all confronted with the same problems. And you're going to get very similar, solutions to those problems.
See, and it's still happening today. Like years and years ago, I created a show that took place in a grocery store.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, over in Britain, there was another show that took place in a grocery store.
Right. And that's why I always think, like with music, but I think it's true. I mean, that's a perfect example of it, is like, you think you've come up with the one sole idea that nobody else in the world has ever thought about this idea.
Right. And how original is doing a show in a grocery store anyway? People be like, aren't you pissed? And I'm like, well, not really. I'm just glad we're all working.
It's
not like I cured cancer.
Yeah. And it's ultimate. I mean, you just have to create stuff faster than people will rip it off. Is what you just have to just keep creating.
Yes, that you're absolutely right. And that they can't take away from you. You just keep thinking up stuff.
Yeah.
Although now AI is going to crush it all.
You can't.
That AI is going to think of stuff really fast.
So one thing, but what people say is that humans and dogs, they both participated in that. It wasn't just like humans saying, hey, I'm going to domesticate that. The wolves kind of had a say in that as well, of like genetically and coming up closer. So it was they were both involved in that domestication.
Perfect match.
Yeah,
they both got something out of it.
Right, and dogs and humans ultimately working together came to dominate the planet, basically.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, amazing. And then I read somewhere where it was like, yeah, but then, at some point, humans, like every story that you always read about that, where like, we work together, and then at some point, they wanted to go off on their own and do their own thing. It's like humans started to see themselves as the masters over the dogs.
Yes. Yeah, we're no longer partners. Let me ask you this. Right. Isn't there an arrangement between you and Franz that you feed Franz and take care of Franz, and then Franz hangs out with you? How long before Franz turns on you if you stop feeding Franz?
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When does Franz go, all right, I'm sorry, but I'm hungry?
Yeah. I still feel, even feeding him, I still feel like it's, he's like, I could leave anytime.
Yeah.
Even
well, cats are really like that, because they're like, look, I can hunt. All right.
Yeah.
So you better give me some, not just give me food, give me good food. It better be better than a mouse.
So we'll move into the cats, since you brought them up. And cats are different from dogs because, first of all, cats ultimately were all descended from the Lehman's Don cat, which is called the Pro-Ilurus, which was a cat that evolved about 30 million years ago. And in the book,
they're solitary hunters, right? They're solitary.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They're not pack hunters.
Yeah. And for cats, in her book, Revered and Reviled, A Complete History of the Domestic Cat, Ellie Vosel says that all species of cats today can be divided into three groups. There's the Panthera, which includes cats that roar, and they evolved about 5 million years ago. There's the Acinonychii, which only includes cheetahs. And if you think about it, cheetahs do kind of look different from other cats.
Yeah, they do.
Cheetahs are a little weird looking.
Yeah, they are.
And then there's the Felinae, which are all other cats who evolved about 1 million years ago.
Okay.
And mitochondrial DNA shows that all the world's small cats are descended from just 5 females.
Whoa.
That's kind of cool. Is it?
Wow. And don't humans come from like 7 females, we think?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what
Amazing.
they were talking about.
Amazing.
And so Vosel then says that the domestic cat is descended from the Felis sylvestris libicus, which is a wild cat that still lives in Egypt. And the Felis sylvestris libicus is actually a little bit larger than a domestic cat, but it's they're descended from a wild cat.
Is that like like you get all these different species, but I always thought that Abyssinians and what's the cat that everybody gets that's very Egyptian? Anyway, those are older species.
Right. You could still go online. I'll post pictures of these different species on there. But it's kind of like, it's a little bit bigger, almost like a bobcat. The Felis sylvestris libicus. So, but it's a wild cat that's still there in Egypt.
What about the coon cat that people get? Those big orange cats that are like, they seem so much bigger. Where do those come from?
I think that's just breeding. That's just like humans have started breeding it.
Take a fat cat and made it with another fat cat.
That's easy as that. Easy as that.
Do it. Repeat 1,000,000 times.
Yeah. And then, whereas dogs became allied with humans through hunting, you could kind of say that cats became allied with humans through agriculture, meaning through stored grain. And it's exactly what you were talking about. It's like once you start storing grain, then the Felis sylvestris libicus started coming in Egypt, started coming into the granaries because they were attracted by the mice.
Mice, yeah.
And again, it was kind of like they saw a beneficial relationship with humans.
Yeah. Still, you go to any farm, there's cats all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. And in Cyprus, there's a grave from about 9,500 years ago that contains a human and a cat.
Oh,
and then
was the cat? Wait a minute, was the cat alive? Who died first?
Yeah, I know.
No, just stay. They put the last stone in.
There's also evidence of cats in Turkey going back about 7,000 years ago.
Wow.
5,700 years ago, you have a lot of cats being buried with humans in Egypt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then 2,700 years ago, cats became known as like protectors of the granaries, what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And they also became associated with the goddess Bast, B-A-S-T, or Bastet is what Bast is also. And the Egyptians saw that cats were perceived to be divine because they thought that the cats exhibited the characteristics of a god. Meaning that
that's true. Anybody who's owned a cat knows that the dog is beneath us, but the cat may very well be in charge of us or thinks it is.
Yeah.
And that's what anybody who doesn't like cats has never had one, is what I always say. Once you've had a cat, you're like, oh, now I see why they're so amazing.
Yeah, and I think it's, because agriculture didn't come around until about 10,000 years ago. So dogs have been living with humans probably 3 times longer than cats have.
Yeah. But that's what makes cats so great, is there's something still wild about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when they look out the window at a bird and they do that, that thing with the jaw, you're just like, Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. They've still, like, there's still a part of a cat, I think, that's saying, like, I don't need you. I'm still doing you a favor by coming in here.
But then they do. Then at night or when you're all alone, they're like, oh, please. And that's like the best feeling in the world, because a dog will always do that, but a cat chooses its moments when it wants that. I had a girlfriend who had a mouse in her house, and I brought Shecky over just to see what would happen. The next day, the mouse had its head ripped off in the living room.
Shecky.
In one day. And Shecky's just like, what did you expect?
Yeah, that's the end of this.
That cat was a badass. That cat pushed another cat out of a 3-story window. Remember that?
Really?
Yeah, Grizz. Remember Grizz?
Oh, yeah.
I saw it happen. We were sitting on the couch stoned, and all of a sudden Grizz is like looking out the window, and then all of a sudden Shecky comes tearing around the corner and literally pushes Grizz out the window.
Wow.
Badass.
And Grizz survived, right?
Yeah, Grizz survived. Yeah. Broke her jaw, which I guess is pretty common when they fall from big heights, because their legs will shock absorb, but their jaw will still hit it. But she was fine. Grizz came back.
I had one of my cats fall out in Chicago, window open, no screens, fell out from second story. And it like his tail was crooked, like it broke his tail. So they always pointed forward after that. So the Egyptians kept cats as house pets. And Vaucel says that because the cat was supposed to be a good mother, Bast, the goddess, and cats became associated with motherhood, children, fertility, and the homes.
There's something female about a cat. There's something feminine about a cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the Egyptians used to actually mummify cats.
Jesus. Oh, God. After they died or before?
Well, probably after they die. And some people think that they did it just, outside of temples for Bast, you would have a bunch of mummified cats for sale. So probably they were just like, there was a business probably mummifying cats to offer up to Bast.
And I'm sure they waited for them to die.
Yeah, let's hope. I'm sure they did.
Yeah. Sure, yeah.
And then when the Greeks and Romans came into contact with the Egyptians, the cat god Bast became associated with the Greek god Artemis. And cats were also associated with Isis, again, a female goddess, like you were talking about. And Artemis was associated with the moon, so that while the lion was associated with Apollo, the cat came to be represent Artemis, and therefore the cat became associated with the moon.
Yeah. Cats are nocturnal. They own the night.
Yeah. And then also over time, the cat became Hecate, who's the goddess of witchcraft and magic, was also associated with the moon. And she was supposed to guard the gate to death, and she became associated with cats as well. I think, again, like you were saying, because of the night, the moon, darkness.
Shecky was a black cat with green eyes, and everybody was always saying, be careful, make sure on Halloween, because you never know what somebody will do to a black cat on Halloween. I was like, really? What? Like devil worshippers? What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, they became associated because the early Christian church, again, was very patriarchal. And so the early Christian church tried to stamp out all these pagan cults that were based around female deities. And so goddesses that had been associated with the moon then became associated with the devil.
Yes.
And because cats were associated with Artemis and the moon and Isis, then cats also became associated with the devil.
Well, there's like that famous scene, I think it's from Huckleberry Finn, where Huckleberry's spinning a dead cat around for some reason, and that's when they see Injun Joe kill. I might be mixing up all kinds of things here, but I do know that they were spinning a dead cat around by its tail.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like people, just because they were associated with the devil, then it was okay just to abuse cats. And for throughout a lot of the Middle Ages and up through Huckleberry Finn, people would just kind of abuse cats. It was just kind of like something, oh, that's all right. That's okay.
Yeah, it's just a cat.
Yeah. So again, let's just to get where, so how did dogs and cats then become pets? And Keith Thomas says, well, although dogs were everywhere in England in the modern period, these were usually working dogs. So people usually saw dogs were always around, but we're talking about when did dogs come inside and start being pets?
Right.
There's also, they used to use, have you ever seen a drawing of, they used to use dogs walking on like a little wheel to turn a spit over a fireplace.
What?
Have you ever seen that? Yeah.
I'll try to find it. Jesus.
Yeah, it's a working dog. It's inside, but it's turning a roast over a fire.
Oh my God. Well, there was didn't the Romans wipe their hands on dogs? I'd always heard that.
I'm getting to that because I knew you were going to ask.
Thank God.
Yeah.
For once and for all.
We'll get to that coming. I'll wait because I'll tell you when we get to it. But okay. I knew you were going to ask about that because you always bring that up.
I do. I heard it somewhere and it's stuck in my head.
So and apparently a lot of people heard it because if you search it, it comes up immediately. Like people have been searching it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I won't. We'll get to it in a few minutes.
Okay. Sounds good.
But the idea of keeping unnecessary dogs, meaning dogs that weren't working dogs or dogs that, weren't dogs that weren't doing something all the time.
Right.
It kind of goes back to James I of England and royalty. Like the royalty was the first people that started keeping hunting dogs and like keeping pet dogs inside their houses all the time. And there was a saying back in
because they're the only ones who could afford it, right? I mean, everybody else is like, Jesus, are you kidding me? Let's see. Do I want my child to starve or do I want a pet? I'll go with kid living. Yeah,
and they say that there were times like back in the 1600s where like royalties, like dukes and like the king, they would make the tenants raise the dogs for them.
Jesus.
I mean? So they would drop off the dog and be like, okay, I'll be back in
train
6
him.
months.
They still do that today. People in Beverly Hills have other people train their dogs for them. And then they leave them $1 million when they die.
So the dogs, I mean, but what you just said was one of the things people used to complain about. They were like, wait a second, the tenants can barely feed themselves. Now they have to feed their dog.
Jesus.
And a preacher in the 17th century actually complained, quote, how oft we may see greedy landlords force their tenants to feed their dogs with what should feed their own children.
Oh, my God.
That's exactly what you were talking about.
Jesus. I didn't use the word off, but yeah.
That's one of the few times you haven't used the word off.
I know. I'm trying to bring that back and oft. And fortnight, not the game, but the measurement of time. Farthing.
Farthing. When does farthing come up with you?
I don't know. I'd like to.
Do you have a farthing for the meter, kind sir?
Governor, did you spell farthing?
Let's see how they go. That'd be some research.
I'll keep working on it. I'll see if I can change culture.
Keep notes. Keep notes on it.
Well,
a journal. I will.
We're still going for that dagger thing at the bottom of a page, the footnote at the bottom of a page. We want a dagger, God damn it.
This would be it. You could publish that.
I'll work on
it. So Thomas says that, in medieval times, dogs were everywhere, though. Like you couldn't go anywhere without seeing dogs around.
Yeah.
Probably because they weren't spayed or neutered,
right?
At the time.
Well, I mean, have we changed that much? I mean, God, you go to Venice and there's feral cats everywhere.
Really,
Venice Beach, yeah. Oh my God, they're everywhere.
And so medieval books of courtesy reminded pages or servants to always drive the dogs and cats out of the master's bedroom before bed.
Oh my God. Jesus. That's like your apartment. Get them out. Herd them.
Yeah, I can say from experience how awful that was. Do you remember I was sitting around one time and I looked and I realized I started counting my cats and I don't know how long it had been, but I just suddenly realized one of them was missing. Oh. And so I went and I put up signs all over about like missing cat and stuff. And a few hours later, I get a phone call and it's my neighbor down below me who the cat had run down there. And the only reason they didn't realize they had so many cats, they didn't realize that there was an extra one. They had like 12 cats.
Oh my God. There is the secret life of pets where we really don't want to know what people are doing with their pets. You know what I mean?
I know.
There's a whole world of that. A whole world. Americans don't like to talk about that kind of stuff, but there's a whole world going on with people and their pets.
it kind of like made me feel better. Then I was like, well, at least I don't have 12.
Right.
12,
right.
Yeah. Kind of cut me a little slack.
I liked your cats. They were sweethearts.
Yeah, they were sweethearts.
Most of them were deaf, though, right? Were a few of them deaf? Were all of them deaf? They were white.
No. Like 3 or 4 of them were white with blue eyes. And apparently white cats with blue eyes can't hear.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was told.
But they can still eat.
Yeah.
I know that.
A lot of sign language. A lot of sign language. And this is getting to what you were talking about. In the books of etiquette also told guests at banquets not to stroke dogs or cats during the banquet.
Interesting. So, why not?
Because it was just considered rude, but it just shows you that the dogs and cats were there around the tables during the banquets.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So lick this food off your hands.
So just to get to your point of like, did they use dogs and cats as dogs as napkins? I couldn't find anything that they actually like says that they did cut as a custom.
But you didn't find anything that said they didn't.
Right. And honestly, if they were there and your hands were greasy, the Romans all ate with their hands.
Every kid at Thanksgiving knows about using the dog to lick your hands clean.
Yeah. That's what I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? If they're right there, you would just be like, oh, I'm going to pet him. But everybody knows you're kind of like really, you're petting him for a long time.
That's right. That's right.
So by the late 17th century, polite society was coming to despise this old way of housekeeping, meaning having dogs and cats just running all over the house. No. And so that's when you started seeing where people's, started separating out. Like, okay, the majority of the dogs have to go outside, but we'll keep a few of the dogs on the inside. Mm-hmm. And it was Greer says it was ultimately the middle class and their desire to emulate the royalty and nobility that led to widespread pet ownership in the 18th and 19th centuries.
They just were we all want to feel like we're part of the upper class.
Yeah,
we all secretly think we are.
And it was apparently leading up to the Civil War, for example, it became part of people's or young people's training or their education to start being they were taught to be more kind to animals. And the idea at that time was that to become a good person in society, you had to learn how to take care of people, take care of creatures that were less fortunate than you. For example, so
all the creatures great and small. Remember that those books about the vet?
Yeah, did you
I got into some of those. Yeah, my mom liked them. I watched some of those, and I read Where the Red Fern Grows and Sounder, all the whatever those books were. And my daughter put it well. I said we were at the bookstore when she was young, and I was like, "Do you want a book on what about a book on pets? Or dogs or something?" And animals, and she's like, no, they always die at the end. Goddamn genius.
It's true. It's so depressing. So depressing. So anyway, John, one quick thing. There was no kitty litter back in the 1800s.
Yeah,
which was something
God. Oh, Jesus.
Kitty litter didn't come along until 1947.
Really? My God. Jesus.
And it was kiln-dried granulated clay, and it was originally marketed for soaking up grease spills in factories.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, people had...
cat'll take a poop in
it. Cat some take guy's a poop like, just about anything.
Yeah, a guy's working somewhere, and he sees some cat taking a poo in the grease pile of grease soaker. He's like, wait a minute. My cats would always go into the box and then like hang their ass off the side. So it was like, they'd be in there. Yeah, it never worked out perfectly. That's for sure.
Before that, they used pans of dirt, sand, sawdust, or just torn paper, which sounds awful to me.
God. It's all awful.
Yeah.
That's the downside to having a cat. But here's what non-cat owners don't understand. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's like people who say, oh, you have a big dog, you have to pick up all that big poop. And I'm like, yeah, but it's worth it. That's how good having a big dog is. You put up with it because it's worth it.
You're starting to sell me on big dogs. Big dogs now.
Let me tell you. Yeah, it's the way to go. I'm going to get you your next dog. I'm giving you Earl.
Oh,
He's pretty big.
No.
Yeah. Happy birthday. That's always the best thing to do to somebody. Surprise them with a pet.
Just ring the bell and take off.
Ding dong. They have a bow on them. Here you go.
So, John, all of this, it kind of gives us a background, but it doesn't answer why. Why do we as humans want to keep pets now when there's no actual physical need to have them in our lives?
Well, the security still holds true. You know, like I have a big dog with a big bark, and my next door neighbor had somebody break in and steal something. Nobody's ever come into our house. You got to think like if I'm a robber and there's a dog barking in this one and not barking in that one, I'm going to go to the one where there's no dog. Why not? And with cats, you know, when I've had cats, I never had a rodent ever.
Yeah. So they're still working for you.
They're still that. Yeah.
Part of the thing that like people are like anthropologists have written about is that the rise of keeping pets was a middle-class phenomenon in the 19th century. Mm-hmm. And they think that this has to do with industrialization and the alienation from the natural world that people felt with the Industrial Revolution.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Because people who don't have pets don't understand. You're bringing in nature into your home.
Right.
You know, in a way that it's hard to explain, but it's very spiritual.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, in an article from 1974, Charles Phineas argued that the image of keeping a pet became a sign of respectability in the 19th century. So again, it's like, hey, we can't afford to keep a horse anymore, for example, but we can keep a dog here in the house.
Yeah. And that's people
and then he says
purebred dogs to show off.
Yeah. And it's still kind of going back to that wanting to emulate the royalty or wanting to emulate.
I get that.
And then he says also that urban families turn to the subjugation of pets because the disappearance of the extended household. So again, when people started moving into cities, getting away from the countryside where they live with all their relatives and everything, they were alone there in the city. And they wanted that feeling of having an extended household again.
Okay.
So and then it's the rise of pets was also this one kind of gets a little gray. I'm not sure if I agree with. He said it also had to do with the decline of servanthood. So people wanted to, they didn't have servants anymore, or there was a decline in having servants live in your house. So you wanted to have creatures that were there to serve you still.
That you could yell at.
That you could boss around. You still wanted to boss them around.
Hey, get over here. Eat this food that I bought for you.
And so he says that pets became surrogate, less expensive children. Basically.
That's true. I mean, that's true for a lot of people. Don't you think?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because his argument was that this kind of coincided, the end of the 19th century coincided with the idea of adolescence. That's when people started thinking about adolescence, because usually once you were 10 years old, you were out in the factory working, prior to the end of the 19th century.
Right.
And so he says, as we have this adolescence and kids can kind of talk back a little more and kids started having their own thing, parents they just needed some soothing creature in the house
that did what they want them to do. God, I can relate to that. That's why I walk that dog every day. He wants to be with me. He doesn't just think with my kids, I'm just an ATM and an executive assistant and an Uber driver. But to Earl, I'm everything.
Yeah.
He loves me.
And I do understand that. And I think a lot of people do get, like you were saying, get animals because they just want just somebody there, somebody there
to like them.
Yeah. And just kind of want to be with them, you know.
Yeah. God, that's depressing and true.
The other thing people talk about is that with animals, we kind of, humans, we see that we're all part of the entire world. We're all part of the universe, for example. Right. And we want to commune, like you were saying, we want to commune with an animal because it gives us some sort of spiritual connection to nature.
It's the exact same thing as a lawn. Having a lawn. It's just to have something alive that's not you. And to see bugs and see shit. And what's weird is how ironic that the dog and the lawn, who are similar, one poops on the other. And then we pick it up out of the lawn. What does that mean?
After our whole thing of wanting to be part of it, it's like we want it completely manicured and we don't want the dog pooping on it. But I think, it's if you look at like cave drawings again, what we were talking, cave paintings, it was all about animals. There was a connection with animals or wild animals at the time. And as we've modernized and industrialized, this hypothesis says, well, we're missing that. We're missing that connection, that kind of idolizing or worshiping wild animals. Therefore, we bring in these cats or bearded. What was it again? Bearded dragon.
Yeah. I had a gerbil once, and then my cat, as a kid, and my cat got into it and paralyzed its back leg, so it just drug its paralyzed back legs around for a while until it died. But we had all kinds of things. My brother and I found a baby possum and made my mom try to feed it milk, and it died. We had snakes. I mean, we had everything. We had all kinds of crazy, wild stuff.
We had, I went out to get the mail the other day. It was pouring down rain, and there was a turtle on our front porch.
Oh.
And like a box turtle or something. I have no idea where he came from. And it was raining, and so we took him and we put him off to the side of the house. I went out there, like 10 minutes later, he was gone.
Yeah,
like he just took off.
Yeah, he's like, and thank you for not killing me. Later.
Yeah, see ya.
Later.
Maybe one day he'll come back and save my life. Like he'll come out, like I'll fall off a ladder and he will go.
More likely you'll be paralyzed and he'll just come in and take a bite out of your neck and look at you while he eats it.
But I think that's what, when you see people at national parks, when they go out there and they try to commune with a buffalo or something.
Oh, Jesus. And they come right at him. And then everybody's all shocked.
Yeah.
It's like when a bear rips off a car door to get your cooler.
Yeah.
People are all, what?
It's nonstop. Like you could go online and see like people in Yellowstone, for example, trying to go up and pet a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
It's like, to try to commune with nature. They all want that spiritual connection with
Well, there was that guy who went to live with the grizzlies and they ate
it.
Yeah.
Grizzly Man. Did you read that book? Or did
no. I know how it ends. It's the same thing with all the animal books. Only in this case, it's the human who dies.
This is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But there used to be in the Middle Ages, people used to think that animals could detect like divinity in people, or like if you were like
I believe that if Earl doesn't like somebody, I'm like, what's going on here?
Really?
Yeah.
And
they can smell cancer. Dogs can smell cancer, apparently.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, I think I think they could definitely. I don't know if they see if you're divinely inspired or something. I think that's maybe what people are looking for.
I'll tell you this much: if somebody says they've never had pets and never want pets, it's sort of like somebody who says they've never gotten drunk. I'm like, very skeptical. I'm like, what? Why? What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? They may have a good reason, but I'm just saying my first response is, you're not like, what's up with you? What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, my brother David used to always say, kids, dogs, and old people love me. That's what he would say all the time. And it was true, but I think he kind of said it for the same reason of like, there's a divinity to that, or there's some sort of spirituality to that. And he'd always get mad. I'd be like, yeah, but you know, kids, dogs, and old people can't get in the car and drive away from you.
I loved David. I loved him, but there was, you know, you did not, but you did not want to rub his fur the wrong way. That's for sure.
He was primal. He was primal.
But that's what I loved about him. He was just like, there was something, he was touched.
Yeah. I love the guy. I love the guy. So,
and man, could he play ski? What do you call it?
Foosball.
Fuck.
Yeah.
You and him were unstoppable.
He's the best foosball player I ever saw.
Oh, God, you could get a double bank in before you know it.
Yeah, he played it like a pool. He played it like a pool.
He did. Geometry involved.
So, John, just kind of wrapping up here. It kind of came. Nickie Charles wrote a book, "Animals Just Love You," or wrote an article. Yeah, "Animals Just Love You as You Are," and she says that, you know, again, it's kind of this alienization that people feel in the modern world, and that to compensate for this, people turn to animals for companionship and intimacy.
Yeah,
and therefore pets provide the existential or spiritual security, which is no longer coming from our relationships with humans, which are fragile, fluid, and contingent.
Yes, that's well said. It's unconditional love. And I thought when I had kids, I would experience that with them, and I do, but it's me unconditionally loving them. They don't reciprocate.
You feel ripped off.
They all go, right now, they're out. They left. They took some money. The two of them are out on the night. And it's going to be me and Earl sitting down watching a rerun of last week's Chiefs game.
So you understand. This is all speaking to you.
And if I'm eating and I'm a little dirty, I'm going to wipe my hands on Earl.
So, John, Cheeto. I hope it's not Cheetos with all that orange on his back.
Well, he's a golden. You can't really tell.
Well, Earl will have orange finger marks all over his back, and you'll have a bunch of orange fur up around your lips.
And we'll both be happy.
So, John, just wrapping up, I just want to say, as you're there with Earl, just remember that you guys are participating in a relationship that goes back 30,000 years.
And give Franz my best.
I will. Yeah. And I hope, you know, if there's an afterlife, we better be able to take our dogs with us. If people go on to say, I don't want to be in an afterlife that doesn't have my pets and animals. So.
Yeah, there is an afterlife, and it's been proven by physicists. You know, that our consciousness continues on ricocheting around the infinite forever. Yeah. But I don't think we're aware. I think we just become a part of the soup.
Well,
but somewhere in there will be Franz. Maybe a Franz molecule, a piece of energy, some string theory will bounce against you. And Franz, and the two energy molecules will go, whoop, and you know that'll be that.
You know, I keep telling him that if there's reincarnation, next time I'll be his dog. I'll come back for his dog.
Yeah, that's the better of the two. Yeah. Franz has got the better end of the deal.
I think so. I think
for sure. All right. Well, this was wonderful. Wonderful. Well, this is human number 2 signing off.
And this is human number 1. Thank you so much for listening to us. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and found it interesting, please tell a friend about it. And also, don't forget to check out our Facebook and Instagram accounts. We have extra supplementary materials that go along with each of the podcasts.
Extra credit, yeah.
Extra credit, yeah. You'll get a boost on that final exam, which is coming up.
It is
the final exam's coming up. And just thank you again. And just remember, don't forget to say hello and go cuddle your pets.
Yes.
So anyway, thank you very much, everybody.
Go adopt one. It'll do you good.
Yeah, a bearded dragon. Go adopt a bearded dragon.
There you go.
So, all right, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Bye.